Everyone is doing well. Today's target is to solve problem number 1. You can see we have several transactions given in the question. This is problem number 1. The data which is given to us, it is just a raw data. As an accountant, we will receive this data, we will welcome this data, and what we will do, we will turn this data into usable information. And how we can do that? This would include 3 steps. Here is our workbook. So primarily we will turn this data into journal as a first step. Then this journal would be turned into different ledgers, and finally we will convert these ledgers into trial balance. This is our basically this is our target for solution of this problem number 1. As you can see, we have already drawn performa or informant for journal. This journal is used for several times. We have solved illustration number 1, 2 and several other chapters. We have completed the problems, we have solved those problems with the help of journal. So performa is same, format is same, lines are same, everything about journal is same. So now our target is to convert these journal entries convert these transactions into journal entry. One different aspect of this problem is you are starting this problem from January 1. While you can see that there are some amounts given even before starting of our period January 1. So please take care. Whenever you will see any question, you are needed and suggested to start reading from the beginning of the question. Very first word where is written, you are needed to start from that question. Let's say if by mistake or by overlooking we start question from January 1 over here. So what will happen? Our entry which is given before January 1 would have been missed, and this way you will never be able to calculate your accurate answer. So it is suggested to start reading from the start of your problem. So here we are starting from the beginning. Started his business. It is about the owner of the business started business with cash 1,30,000, furniture 40,000, and building 2 lakh on 1st January. So this is what he is saying. Proprietor had started his business in 3 different ways. You can make 3 different entries, or you can make single entry as well. I will show you all of the entries. When you are doing 3 entries, as there are 3 amounts 2 lakh, 130,000 and 40,000, these are 3 amounts. So initially we will do 3 different entries. So started business with cash 130. January 1 is the date, so you will put January 1 date first. Started business with cash. Here I would like to explain that you are working for business and you are not working for the businessman. We are not individual employees. You are not making accounts for the businessman. You are making accounts from the business for the business, as business is separate legal entity. What does that mean? So whenever you want to know how much amount has increased or decreased, you will follow the point of view of business, not businessman. So here businessman is investing, amount is going out, cash in hand. If you are focusing upon businessman, cash in hand of businessman is decreasing. But since we have decided that we will follow business, not businessman, according to business point of view, amount is coming in, cash in hand is increasing. Increase in cash in hand mean increase in asset, which should be debited. So you will mention cash on debit side, as there is an increase in asset. Amount which is provided by the proprietor is called capital. Capital is liability of the business, as business is answerable for the amount which is provided by the proprietor. So capital is liability. Liability should be mentioned on credit side. So you are going to write capital on credit side. This is January 1 and we should name it like it's entry number A. So we have January 1, but it's A. There are several entries of January 1, so we'll follow accordingly. Just little adjustment for the date. Since there are three ways with which capital has been invested in the business. First, we have seen cash was invested in the business 130,000, and now furniture is also provided by the proprietor. It means it's still another capital. Furniture is provided to the business. We can mark date first, January 1, but it's B entry. Since proprietor is providing furniture, so we are not looking the point of view of owner of the business. We will be focusing according to business point of view, not businessman point of view, with which we come to know that furniture is coming in. Furniture is asset is increasing. Increase in asset should be mentioned on debit side, so you will mention furniture on debit side. Since furniture is also provided by the proprietor of the business, it is still a capital. Whatever is provided by proprietor is called capital. Capital is liability of the business, as when furniture will be provided, business is answerable that how much furniture is received, where that furniture is. So business is answerable for this furniture. It is liability of the business. Liability should be mentioned on credit side, so you are going to write capital on credit side. All right, furniture we have written. And the third way of investment is proprietor is buying a building and investing into the business. So according to business point of view, building is coming into the business. Building is an asset is increasing. Increase in asset should be mentioned on debit side, so you are supposed to write building on debit side. Who is providing this building? Proprietor. And we have decided whatever is provided by the proprietor of the business, that would be considered capital. Capital is liability. Liability should be mentioned on credit side, so you will mention capital on credit side as it's liability for the business. Since date is same, so we are just mentioning January 1, but it's C entry. Okay, amount missed. The very first amount was cash, it was 130,000, so you are supposed to write 130,000 on debit side, and same amount will be put on credit side. Cash is completed. Now next was furniture, which is provided by the proprietor. 40,000 was the amount, so put 40,000 on debit side, and same amount you are supposed to write on credit side. Then we have our third investment by the proprietor, which is of 2 lakh rupees. So 2 lakh would be written on debit side, and same amount would be posted on credit side as well. January 1 was having three amounts, all were capital, and you have invested, this was invested by the proprietor of the business. Here I would like to show you, if you want to make a combined entry, what you will do. As you can see that capital is common for all three entries. So here you will write what is coming in the business. Initially we have received cash from proprietor, then we have received furniture from owner, and then we have received building from owner of the business. So these are three elements which we have received from proprietor. All these elements were provided by the proprietor. So whatever is provided by the proprietor is considered capital, which is liability. So second way to do this entry is like this. You may write a combined entry like this, or you may write separate entries. How you would put amount: cash was 130,000, furniture was 40,000. I'm just looking at these entries and getting the amount. Building was 2 lakh, so worth of building was 2 lakh, and in total what you have done, 130,000 plus 40,000 and plus 2 lakh, total capital is provided by the proprietor is 370,000. So you may write three entries in this way, or you may write single entry like this way. Both are correct. Whatever is comfortable for you, you may choose it and write accordingly. Since we have already done three separate entries, the combined entry is unnecessary to be written over here. It was just for the reference. You can take short screenshot over here if you want to remind it, remember it, how we can do the combined entry. This is the way we have done three different entries for the same date. This is the way we have combined those three entries as date was same. Both methods are correct, both methods are acceptable, but right now there is only one factor, one method to be written over here. So what we are doing now, combined entry is unnecessary to be written over here. We are going to erase it. January 1 entry is completed. Now what would be our next step? We will see what next date is for us after January 1. We again have January 1. Okay, this is the fourth entry of January 1. So what you will do, you will name it January 1, but this is C entry. Sorry, it's D entry. Three entries are already been done. And this January, we are talking about this transaction, purchase goods on account from Asif. So you are buying goods, purchase goods on account, you are buying goods from Asif. When you are buying good, it means goods are coming in, goods are your near asset, assets are increasing, increase in assets should be mentioned on debit side. So goods were supposed to be written on debit side. But as you know, we do not write goods in accounting, we write working instead of goods. What working we are doing? Since we are buying, so you will mention the word purchase over here. Goods were written just for the reference, so that we come to know that what is coming in. So reference has been completed. We have written purchase instead of goods. Goods are now unneeded to be written over here. You may erase it. All right. And where is erase? Erase button is not present over here. Okay, we can erase from other button. So goods were purchased, and how you have purchased these goods, name is mentioned over here. Cash is not mentioned, rather we have the name. When cash is not mentioned, name is mentioned, consider it cash is not going out, it is credit transaction. Asif was the person from whom you have purchased goods and you haven't paid. It means amount is still payable, so it would be considered as liability. Liability should be mentioned on credit side. Asif as account payable is our liability. Liability should be mentioned on credit side, so you will write name of Asif on credit side. Now let's see how much of goods, how much worth of goods we have bought. This is 30,000. So we are going to write 30,000 on debit side, and same amount we are supposed to write on credit side. So this way January 1 D entry has been completed. Now let's see what next date is. It is January 2. So we will put date first, that is January 2. One thing I would like to share, whenever you will make journal, there are three lines: debit, credit and narration. So we were supposed to write narration as well, but this is not chapter directly related to journal. We are going to make ledgers. So just to save the time, we are skipping that activity of writing narration. Narration is simple. Whatever you will see over here in English, you will write same on third line, or it may be possible you can decline it, or you can choose 3, 4, 5 words just for the information. So that is why we are skipping that activity of writing narration. January 2, come back and see what January 2 is saying. Purchase goods for cash. What does that mean? We are buying goods again. Goods are coming in, goods are your near asset, asset is increasing, so you are supposed to write goods over here. But in accounting, we do not write goods in place of goods, or instead of goods we write working. What working we are doing? Buying. So you will mention that goods are purchased. In place of goods, we have written purchases. Goods were written just for the reference. Now it is unneeded to be written over here. You may erase it. So goods are purchased for cash. It is written in our transaction. Goods are bought for cash. It means when you will buy good, cash would be paid. Cash is going out. Cash in hand is decreasing. Decrease in cash in hand means decrease in asset. Decrease in asset should be mentioned on credit side. So you will mention cash on credit side. How much worth of goods you have purchased in second entry? It is 60,000. Write down 60,000 on debit side, and you are going to write same amount on credit side as well. This way you have completed January 2. What is next date? After January 2 we have January 3. So make a habit of putting date first. January 3. Let's see what January 3 is saying. January 3 is saying sold goods for cash. Now we are selling goods. When you will sell goods, you will receive cash, means your cash in hand is increasing. Increase in cash in hand should be posted on debit side. So we are going to write cash on debit side. Why you are receiving this cash? Because we have sold goods, mean goods are going out. Goods are your near asset. Assets are decreasing. Decrease in asset should be mentioned on credit side. So you were supposed to write goods on credit side as goods are decreasing. But we do not write goods in accounting. In place of goods we write working. What working we are doing? We are selling. So you will mention name of sales over here. Goods were written just for the reference, and the purpose has been completed. After writing sale, goods are unnecessary to be written over here, so you may erase it. We have sold goods for cash January 3rd. How much of worth of goods were sold? It is 44,000. So you are going to write 44,000 on debit side, and same amount you are going to write on credit side as well. This way you have completed January 3rd entry. Now let's see what is next. After January 3 we have January 8, and since there are two entries of January 8, so you will mention January 8 but with A. So that would be a little difference. First January 8th entry is saying sold goods to Shahid. Sold goods to Shahid. As you know that cash is not mentioned over here, so we will indirectly understood that it is credit transaction as cash is not been mentioned in the entry. Sold goods to Shahid. When you are selling goods, it means goods are going out. Goods are your near asset. Asset is decreasing. Decrease in asset should be mentioned on credit side. So you were supposed to write goods on credit side and goods are going out. There is decrease in asset, decrease in goods. In accounting, we do understand that goods are not written in place of goods. We write working. What working we are doing? We are selling these goods. So what you will do? You will write the word sale in place of goods. Goods were written over here just for the reference, and purpose is completed. Now goods are unnecessary to be written over here, you may erase it. January 8 you have sold goods but you haven't received cash. January 8 you have sold goods to Shahid directly, cash is not being received. It means amount is still receivable. The person from whom amount is receivable is Shahid. Shahid is your account receivable. All amounts which are still receivable are asset. Asset should be mentioned on debit side. So you will mention name of Shahid as account receivable on debit side, because Shahid is your asset. Account receivable, assets should be mentioned on debit side. How much worth of goods we have sold? That is 28,000. So you will mention 28,000 on the debit side, and same amount you are supposed to write on credit side as well. So here we have written 28,000 on the credit side. January 8A is completed. Now let's see what next January 8th entry is saying. Purchase typewriter. Now you are buying your typewriter. Name is not mentioned. It means indirectly we will understood it is cash transaction. Whenever you see name is mentioned but cash is not mentioned, it is credit transaction. And now what is happening? Purchase typewriter, name is not mentioned, so we will indirectly understood it that it's a cash transaction. When you will buy a typewriter, typewriter will be coming in. Typewriter is your asset. Increase in asset should be mentioned on debit side, so you will write typewriter as an asset on debit side as it is increasing. How you will buy typewriter? Obviously by payment, means cash is going out, your cash in hand is decreasing, asset is decreasing, decrease in asset should be mentioned on credit side, so you will mention cash on credit side. This was again January 8. So what we will do for mentioning date, January 8 we will choose, but it's B entry for January 8. What was the worth of this typewriter? 16,000. So you will write 16,000 on debit side, and you are supposed to write same amount on credit side as well. This way you have completed January 8th entry. Now we are going to see what next entry is. After 8 we have January 10. So date should be mentioned. January 8 is the date. Let's see what is no, January 10th was the date, so you will mention here January 10. So what January 10 is saying, bought an iron safe. Here you can see the entry, bought iron safe. Iron safe is a sort of furniture. Furnitures are asset. Iron safe is coming in, mean asset is increasing. Increase in asset should be mentioned on debit side. So you are going to write iron safe on debit side. How you are buying iron safe? As cash is going out, cash is your asset. Asset is decreasing. Decrease in asset should be mentioned on credit side. So you will mention cash on credit side. Iron safe to cash is your entry. January 10. How much worth of iron safe is? It is 8,000 rupees. So you are going to write 8,000 on debit side, and same amount you are supposed to write on credit side as well. This way your January 10th entry is completed. Now let's see what is next entry. It is January 12th. After 10th entry, put date first. January 12th, write down here, and now see what January 12 is saying. Made purchases from Salman. Now again the same procedure has arrived. Made purchases from Salman. Name is mentioned, cash is not mentioned. It means it is indirectly we will understand as a credit transaction. Goods purchased from Salman. When you are buying goods, it means goods are coming in. Goods are your near asset. Asset is increasing, so you were supposed to write goods in debit side. But as you know that we do not write goods. Instead of goods we will write working. What working we are doing? Buying. So you will mention purchase instead of writing goods. Goods were written just for the reference. Purpose is completed. Now goods are unneeded to be written over here. You may erase them. You have purchased goods on January 12th from Salman, and cash is not mentioned. It means it is credit transaction. You have bought goods, amount had not paid, amount is still payable. The person to whom amount is payable is Salman. Salman is your account payable, which would be your liability. So you will put name of Salman on credit side as it is your liability, and liability should be mentioned on credit side. Why Salman is liability? Because you have bought goods but haven't paid the amount. Amount is still payable. It is burden upon you. It would be considered your liability, and credit side is associated with liability. That is why you have written name of Salman on credit side. January 12. How much worth of goods you have purchased from Salman? It is 36,000. So you will mention 36,000 on debit side, and you are supposed to write same amount on credit side as well. 36,000 is written on credit side. January 12th entry is completed. Now let's see what is after January 12. It is January 14. So come over here and write January 14 as date. What January 14 is saying? Opened bank account. So you have opened a bank account. What does that mean? You have deposited some amount in your bank account, which means cash was going out. Cash had gone out and it gone directly into your bank account. Cash is your asset, means your cash in hand is decreasing, means asset is decreasing. Decrease in asset should be mentioned on credit side. So you will mention name of cash on credit side. Where this cash had gone into the bank, means amount present in your bank account would be increased. It means your asset is increasing. Bank account is your asset. It's a good thing, favorable thing, valuable thing for the business. Bank account asset, asset is increasing. Increase in asset should be mentioned on debit side. So you will mention name of bank on debit side. How much amount is deposited into the bank January 14? This is 40,000 amount which is deposited into the bank. So you are going to put 40,000 on debit side, and same amount you are putting on credit side. As we know that in accounting, debit and credit side are always equal. So here January 14 is completed. Now let's see what is next. January 16. So we are coming over here, January 16th entry. What January 16 is saying, receive a check from Shahid. Here we have received a check from Shahid for this much amount, and that's all. Now please, I need your attention. You have just received the check. Normally it is understood that check is directly or indirectly associated with bank account. No. If you have not deposited that check into your bank account, please do not mention bank account. I am repeating. If check has not been deposited into the bank, you will not mention the bank account. Right now, we have just received check. We have just received check from Shahid, and that check has not been deposited into the bank. So what you are receiving? A check. Check is your near asset. Why? Because eventually this check would be deposited into the bank account and amount would be increased. Right now we haven't deposited this check. In accounting we do not write mention check instead of check. For the time being we will consider it as cash. Actually it's not cash. We have received a check and that check has not been deposited into the bank. So for the time being we are considering it as check. From whom you have received this check? The person's name is Shahid. Receive a check from Shahid in 16th entry. Shahid was the person from whom amount was receivable. Instead of receiving cash from him, what we are receiving check. No matter in what shape you are receiving, but Shahid was account receivable. After receiving check, he is no more your account receivable, no more your asset. Asset is decreasing. Decrease in asset should be mentioned on credit side. So you will mention name of Shahid on credit side, in spite of the fact that he was your account receivable. Account receivables are assets, and assets were supposed to be mentioned on debit side. So why we are writing Shahid on credit side? Because he had paid and we have received amount from Shahid. It means he is no more your asset, no more account receivable. Decrease in asset. Decrease in asset should be mentioned on credit side. So you have mentioned name of Shahid on credit side. It was January 16th entry. How much of amount is received from Shahid in shape of check? That is 18,000. So you are going to put 18,000 on debit side, and same amount will be written on credit side as well. So this way you have completed your entry number 16. And now let's see what next entry is saying. That would be for January 16. After 16 is 18. So put 18 over here. Let's see what January 18 is saying. Issued. Now we are going to issue a check in favor of Asif for rupees 16,000. In previous entry we received check. In this entry we are going to draw a check or issue a check in favor of Asif. When you will draw a check, the person to whom you have issue this check, he will receive this check, will go to your bank account, will present that check. Amount would be drawn from your bank account. It means amount present in bank account would be decreased. Bank account is your asset. Asset is decreased. Decrease in asset should be mentioned on credit side. It means your bank account is decreasing. That is why due to decrease in asset you have mentioned your bank account on credit side. To whom you are issuing this check? This was your entry number 18. Issued a check in favor of Asif. Asif was the person to whom you have issued this check. You have drawn a check in favor of Asif. Asif was the person to whom amount was payable. He was your liability. As after payment, he is no more your account payable, no more your liability. Liability is decreased. Decrease in liability should be mentioned on debit side. So name of mention would be written on debit side. Though he was your account payable, account payables are liabilities. Liabilities are meant to be written on credit side, but we have paid after payment. He is no more our account payable, no more liability. Decrease in liability should be mentioned on debit side. So we have mentioned name of Asif on debit side. How much worth of check we are issuing in favor of Asif? Here you can see Asif 16,000. So you will put 16,000 on debit side, and same amount you are supposed to write on credit side as well. So this way your entry January 18 is completed. Here I would like to say that just take a short break and we are meeting again soon after. We had completed these many journal entries in first part, and we will try to complete whole question journal entries in the next part. Thank you very much for your participation. I'm waiting for you. Just come back after short break.